You're listening to the Hockey 411 with your host, Brian Anderson.
Welcome to Hockey 411. I'm your host, Brian Anderson, and after 2 episodes last week, I think we're going to get nice 2 episodes this weekend. And today, someone who's been on the podcast or has not been on the podcast in a really long time, Mr. Nathaniel Bros, talk about some NCAA bracket challenge, I guess, if you want to call it. How are you, Nate?
I'm doing good, Brian. How about you?
I'm okay. I'm really happy you've been on. And we've done this before. We did this last year.
Yep.
And I'm really excited this year. I know a lot more about college hockey, or at least I'd like to think I know a lot more. This year was very fun to watch. A lot of these teams are very interesting, and I'm excited that when we go to the first round over in Allentown this weekend, I'm really excited to see Denver and Ohio State, all those guys. So for those that don't know where we're located, we're about an hour outside of Allentown, and we will be in attendance. So you can check out our Twitter feed, and we'll be giving you guys all updates and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're going to get right into it here. We're going to start off with St. Cloud State, that region, where St. Cloud State's playing Air Force first round. I want to start off with St. Cloud State, where they're 9-0 against Air Force all time, but they haven't played them since 94.
Yeah, it's been a while. You know, they're not like super common opponents. They don't play in the same conference. They never have. So this is like true national tournament kind of game here between teams that never see each other. Teams that play pretty different styles of hockey. It should be interesting. I mean, obviously it's the 1/16 game. It's the team that's been at the top of the rankings and top of the best conference in hockey all season against an Air Force team that lost some key players from last year's tournament team and found their way back into the tournament by picking up a few wins in the Atlantic Hockey Tournament that maybe some people didn't really expect. So it's good to see them back. They're always a team that seems to have interesting things happen to them in the tournament. Yeah, no, this first round matchup here, as we go into a little bit more detail here, is going to be very interesting. But I'm a big fan of Motzko, head coach for St. Cloud State. I think he really pulls his team together like we were talking about before. I also know him because he's the head coach for Team USA. It's another perk there, but we're also going to give our players to watch this tournament. So we're going to pick out 1 or 2 guys from each team and see how we think. Like if you're looking for someone, you got to circle him because he's going to be the game changer. Mm-hmm. I'm going with Mr. Ryan Poing. I believe I'm saying that right. Poing. Same thing, I guess, huh? For a first rounder from Montreal this past year, and the guy's at 31 points in 35 games in his second year. Second year. And if you look at the way he's progressed and how much he's grown this year as a player for college hockey, he's really done a lot better. 31 points, like I said. And, being with Team USA at the World Junior Championship, which I put a lot of stock into, having, 3 points, 7 games. It's not an easy tournament to score in. So having 3 points says something a lot. Mm-hmm. And just overall, I think he's a really solid player, and he's going to be the guy that's going to have to step up and really take charge, because this Air Force team is no joke this year. Yeah, he was a star in high school in Minnesota. He's joined by 2 of his other brothers. They're all in the same class. They're not all the same age, but they're all sophomores, so a bit of a family thing going on there. He's really improved his defensive game. He's a forward, but he's really stepped up his ability to play responsibly in his own zone. And so he's more of a factor from front to back this year, which has given him, or at least given Bob Motzko more of the ability to rely on him as a player. The guy I'm looking at for St. Cloud this weekend is the anchor of this team, junior defenseman Jimmy Schultz. This is not a team that necessarily scores at a high rate. They're not an elite scoring team, but they are more of just a system team that plays strong defense. They're a top 15 defense, and they kind of score by committee. That's how they are a top 5 scoring team. But Jimmy Schultz plays a lot of minutes. You're going to see him out there a lot. He also picks up a lot of points and has 8 power play goals. So when they get on the man advantage, he's going to be out there. And couple that with the fact that they don't really have a starting goalie, you're going to have a lot of reliance on defensemen to kind of keep things stable, even when you're rotating between David Rink and Jeff Smith. They pretty much split time, and we're not really sure who's going to play this weekend. Rink was starting games down the stretch, but was pulled in the NCHC championship game in favor of Smith. So I'm not even sure Motzko knows who's going to be in net on.
That's a big factor there.
Yeah, and so with that in mind, you're going to need the defenseman to play their game and not change based on who's in net.
Yeah, I think that's a big factor there, especially when you have inconsistent goaltenders.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need a guy to step up, and he seems like the guy that could do it. And like you said before, but we're going to move on to the Air Force team here. And this Air Force team loves to play the upset role. Their past 6 tournament appearances have been 2 first-round wins in 2009 and against Western Michigan last year. Majority of those games, all 1-goal games, except for in 2012 against BC.
Yeah.
So this team is, like, they know how to do it, and they are 7 times in 12 years as a 5 seed winning their tournament. So that is big. I mean, coming out of nowhere.
This is a team that plays well in the playoffs. It's really that simple. They've been coached by Frank Serratori for quite a while at this point. I couldn't even tell you how long he's been there. But probably, God, I honestly don't even know. He's probably been there for 20, 25 years at this point. But they just win games in Atlantic hockey. He's a Minnesota guy. They're going to what is effectively the Minnesota bracket in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And to sleep on Air Force would be a mistake. So the guy I'm looking at in this game is their goaltender. He's going to have to be...
yeah, that's who I have.
Yeah, he's going to have to be huge. So Billy Christopoulos is in his first season as the starter. He took over for Shane Starrett, who was a Hobie Baker candidate.
And he's looked really good this year, too.
Yes.
Billy's had a phenomenal year, especially when you look at his numbers. His save percentage of .920. It's very impressive.
Yeah, he's had a great year. This was the biggest question mark for Air Force entering the season with the loss of Starrett, who left after his sophomore year, leading them to the final 8 of the tournament last year. And so, if he gets into a rhythm, this team can be pretty scary. The Falcons have 5 shutouts on the season, and with a St. Cloud team that, while they score goals in games, they don't have any single guy that really dominates. Offensively, that's somewhat of a scary situation if Christopoulos gets into a rhythm.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Christopoulos has been really good for this team. Like I said, his numbers really speak for himself there. So with that being said, that's our first play game in this region. So who do you have winning this game?
I still think St. Cloud wins. It's too deep a team for Air Force, and they have enough talent. They're well coached. I think they win, but I think it's closer than people think.
No, I agree with you there. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. Probably another 1-goal game because that's how Air Force likes to play their games. But yeah, no, I think that St. Cloud State takes this easy. We're going to move on to the next game here, which is Minnesota State versus Minnesota Duluth. And I want to start off with State. They were upset by your Tech team, your Michigan Tech team, which, for those that don't know, Bros here covers them on their website.
Yep.
They had the week off, which I think is going to be a big factor for them coming into this tournament. It's a big layoff. You don't have a week off like this and then come back and then they're like, okay, we got to really hit it hard. So that's a big factor for me is this layoff. So, yeah, I'll let you go right now then.
Sure. It could definitely be a factor. However, they've won 29 games this season and they had a great year feasting on a weak WCHA. And so the inclination is going to be to think that they've played a weak schedule or whatever, but they swept Boston University in Boston. They split with Minnesota Duluth, who they're playing this weekend. And so they've taken care of business at every point of the season except for against Michigan Tech in the playoffs. So the only question I really have about them is whether they have, a little bit of self-doubt because they played with such confidence over the course of the season. They won 21 of 24 games between December and those back-to-back losses to Michigan Tech. So, considering that whole body of work they've had, wins over St. Cloud, wins at St. Cloud, win over Duluth, and those 2 wins against BU, this is a team that was nearly a 1 seed, and it would have been well deserving. And so they're the 5th overall seed, and were given no favors by drawing Minnesota Duluth in this tournament. But I think they're scarier than people think, and I think a lot of people hopped off of the bandwagon, so to speak, when they went down to Michigan Tech. But this is no slouch.
No, it's not. And I know, like you said before, they have split with Duluth this year, so they did not get a good draw. My player to watch is CJ Suss. Yep. Is that how you say it? Cease?
Yes.
Captain this year, 43 points, 39 games. That's pretty impressive there, considering he put out 31 and 39 games played last year. So he's their go-to guy. His penalty minutes are a little high for me, but he is riding a plus 18, which I'm happy about. And it looks like he is obviously a 5th-round pick for the Jets, so I would like to see when he gets signed there. But if anything, he's had himself a really nice college career, considering he's going to be a senior this year.
Yeah,
so. He's
the best player in the WCHA. He's really come alive. He's a Hobie finalist. He won't win the Hobie, but he's definitely deserving of that kind of recognition. The guy I'm looking at, well, I'm going to cheat here and name 2. Defensively is Daniel Brickley. He's one of the most defensively sound defensemen in the WCHA. He picks up points. He has 5 power play goals, 35 points. One of the few defensemen with double-digit goals. And he can do a lot for you, and he does. But the other guy is one of the best freshmen in this tournament, Jake Jaremko. He's dynamic. He can create goals on his own. He might actually be Minnesota State's most talented player, even though he's kind of being outshined by Cease and a couple other guys on the first line. But this is a Minnesota State team with depth of scoring, depth defensively, and a goaltender who transferred from Boston University, Connor Lecouvier, with 23 wins, a sub-2 goals against. This is a complete team that can easily make a run to the Frozen Four and win it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Fun fact about Daniel Brickley, his cousin is Connor Brickley, who was a 2nd-round pick for Florida, so I think that's pretty cool.
Sure.
And to throw that out there. We're going to move on to Minnesota Duluth, where they barely squeaked into this tournament, and they got by .0001 RPI points, which is crazy. They are the runner-up from last year's tournament. Great game out there as well. They have split, like we said before, with State, so this team kind of sliding in. And if there's anything that hockey has taught us, is that as long as you're in, you still have a shot. And now it's like a fresh season for these guys. So I'm really waiting. This is going to be an exciting game too. There's a lot of good rounds going for here. And my player to watch is the Dallas Stars first pick, Riley Tufte, which I'm really high on. 6'6", 209, 28 points in 38 games as a sophomore. That's really impressive. I think he's going to develop well. He played for the USA World Junior Championship team, also with 3 points, 7 games. It's impressive. The fact that his size is there, he's a former first rounder. A little off the board when Dallas took him, but nevertheless, he's had a really good year considering he's basically doubled his point total from last year.
Yeah, he's good. This team has there's a lot of freshmen on this team, and so even though he's a sophomore, he's one of the more seasoned players on the team. It's really impressive that this Duluth team made it back to the tournament. I was kind of surprised by it, and I was nearly right because like Brian said, they barely made the tournament, but they have more than enough talent to make a run here. The guy that I think you guys should be looking at is defenseman Scott Perunovich. He's the best freshman in the country, one of the best defensemen in the country. He leads this team with points. And for a Duluth team that is talented, a defenseman leading the team is quite rare. He's electric, and he's going to be fun to watch. So if you can watch this game, he's the guy you want to look at. And he can be quite dangerous. So for me, I mean, Brian mentioned it briefly for a second there, but making the tournament is all you need. And this tournament has a history of the last team in making runs. Providence was the last team in 2015 and won the national title.
Right.
That kind of thing happens a lot. I have Duluth upsetting Minnesota State here and winning.
So do I. I have Duluth winning here. So then this is the West. We're going to pick our team that would come out of it and be in the semis, or the Frozen Four, as they say. St. Cloud State or Minnesota Duluth?
I have Duluth making a run back to the Frozen Four.
Really? I'm going to go with St. Cloud State. I think they have more talent. I think they're better coached. If I'm honest, the only question mark with St. Cloud is their goaltending. As long as they can get someone that can stop pucks for, I guess, and put up a decent game, I think they'll be fine.
Yep.
So I have St. Cloud State. Bros here has Duluth, and we're going to move on to the Midwest region, where we're going to start off with Ohio State, who ended up, I believe they won their Big Ten championship.
No, they lost in overtime in the championship game to Notre Dame.
That is right, because I knew they were in it. Yep. I did not know if they won it. Yep. It was close, but, this is they've only been to one Frozen Four in their history.
Yep.
I was in 98, so it's been a while. It's been 20 years, I'd say. First ever time as a 1 seed in their area. Player I'm going to watch is Matthew Weiss, centerman for this club. And if you need a guy to win a draw, he's a guy. He's a local kid from where I grew up. 37 points, 37 games. That's good stuff there. Mm-hmm. He's won a USHL championship, so he has the flavor of winning. And like I said before, when it comes down to a draw, this guy usually does pretty well on the faceoff dot. So he will be instrumental as the game goes on.
Sure. Yeah, Ohio State, probably their best season in maybe ever, but certainly a long time. They have a lot of balance. Last year they had a top 5 offense, but not a strong defense. This year they have a 1 seed because of their defense. It is a top 5 defense. They've gotten strong goaltending from transfer Sean Romeo from Maine. But the guy I think that is going to be a big factor here is Mason Jobst. He is an elite scorer. He leads the team with 19 goals. He's one of the best players in the Big Ten, in a conference with more than enough talented goal scorers. And he's been a standout in this conference, to the point that he can make an impact in any game against anybody. So he's going to be dangerous for Princeton.
Yeah. Ohio State.
Yeah, but against Princeton.
Oh, against Princeton. Yes, okay. That makes sense then. No, you're good. Just want to make sure everyone listening has got the clear message. We're going to move on to Princeton here, where Princeton this year, they won their tournament, which was a good. They also finished 7th in their conference when it came down to points, but they went 10-10-2. That's something you're not really inclined to see. And when I saw Princeton was picked, I was like, okay, they got it in because they won the tournament. But then when I looked at their regular season record, it was not that impressive, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
This is their first time back in the tournament in a while. In 2008, they won it all, but that's kind of all ever since it's kind of been just slowly declining.
Yep.
But it's good to see them back. I've seen them a couple times in the past couple of years. But the player I'm going to say to watch is Maxim Veranu. I believe that's how you say it. 55 points in 35 games. That has to be said. There's him and Ryan Kufner. 55 and 52 points there, and there's a significant drop off with 38. That I think if you mention either of those guys, your points carry your team. They're going to help out, and if one of them goes down, it's going to be tough. So you have to recognize the kind of point totals.
Yeah, Kufner's the guy I have to watch. Him and Verano are 2 of the top 4 scorers in all of NCAA, combining for 107 points, which is kind of insane. This region really has a lot of kind of pairs of talented goal scorers, and Kufner's going to be a factor. The thing about Princeton is that their record's bad. But they were horrible in the beginning of the year.
That's true. They've been getting hot the second half of the year.
So they're 13-2-1 in their last 16 games. They have the number 2 offense in the nation, and in that stretch of 16 games, they've scored 4 or more goals 11 times. That includes wins over Cornell, a 1 seed, 2 wins and a tie against Clarkson, who is also in the tournament, and a sweeping Union, who won the national title 2 years ago. sorry, 4 years ago now. Wow, we're old. They swept Union 4 years ago in the playoffs. They swept Union in the playoffs this year. At Union, a team that made the tournament last year. So they've really had this stretch against teams that are pretty solid. They're scarier than people think, and if that offense gets going, they have the ability to win a game or two here.
Yeah, no, I think they can definitely pose a fight to Ohio State, but if I'm honest, I think Ohio State's defense is just too good this year. I have them winning that game, so I'm assuming you have the same thing.
I do not. I have Princeton winning this game.
Wow, it is a big upset there.
Yeah, I don't trust necessarily Sham Romeo in net for Ohio State. He's had a fine year, but I think Princeton is
even with the defense in front of him. Princeton's
red hot and has. The interesting thing about Ohio State is that they've had a good year, but they've struggled with one team. They've struggled with Penn State. Penn State is offensive heavy with minimal defense, and Princeton's closest relative this season is Penn State. So Ohio State hasn't really been able to beat Penn State this year, and I think that if you're going to look for an upset in this tournament, Princeton is one to pick out, considering Ohio State's given up 13 goals in their first 3 games against Penn State this season. They don't know how to shut down a high-powered offense. They've proven that, and I think Princeton could very well take advantage of that.
Interesting. It's an interesting point there. I'm going to stick by it. I think defense wins games. I know they struggled, but when it comes down to crunch time, I think they're going to be a little unsatisfied from the way the Big Ten ended.
Sure.
So we're going to keep moving on here. We're going to go to Denver, Penn State. So I want to start off with Denver here, the former champions here, and they're a very fun team to watch. They've got a lot of depth, really high powered, and it's just a go for this team. And they're pretty hot, I'd say, right now as well. I'm going to go with, for my player to watch, Mr. Henrik Borgstrom. I believe I said that right.
Yep, of course.
I know anyone I've talked to saying that, I kind of butcher his name. But anyway, for the sake of it, he's a first rounder for Florida. And when he was picked, a lot of people questioned it because this was the year Florida made the transition to analytics, and everyone was like, wait a second. He was supposed to go a little later, and he has really taken this Denver team by storm. I know at the deadline this year, many NHL teams were calling on him and wanted to snag him, but Florida held pat, and they said no. He's 6'3", 185, and he has just had an unbelievable year, 50 points, 38 games, and he is just really fun to watch. I'm really excited to see him in person and see what he does with the puck.
Yeah, he's maybe the most talented player in college hockey now that Ryan Donato's a pro. He's a highlight reel player just by nature. The only question mark really on him is effort level, but he's taken it upon himself to play a strong defensive game as well. He's the best player in this region, like you said. So besides him, you could talk about any number of guys. Troy Terry, who anybody that watches American hockey knows. Tanner Gillette came back surprisingly for his senior year. He won the national title last year and won the Richter Award for best goalie last year, and he's back again. He's great. The guy I think that people forget somehow is Jared Lukasevich, who scored a hat trick in the national championship game last year and continues to be a factor. He's kind of overshadowed by some of these talented guys. I mean, I didn't even mention Dylan Gambrell, but with Lukasevich, he has 10 power play goals this season, which leads the team, a team that scores a lot on the power play. And Penn State takes a lot of penalties. So Denver's going to punish them every time they take a penalty. And I expect that to be a main factor in Saturday's game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. This is the game I have circled for the weekend here. I think Penn State will be able to put up a fight, but I think Denver in the end will take that. So we're going to get into Penn State here. Coached by Guy Gadowski, who ended up leaving Princeton here, which I thought was pretty funny. And then they could have a possibility of winning here. He won with Princeton in 2008, but then this team is probably going to to avenge that blowout loss from last year in Cincinnati. They finally got to get it going. They had a little bit of a slow start. Penn State finally picked it up, and they played some really tight games down the road. My player to watch, it was going to be Dennis Smirnoff at the beginning, like slowly. But then I realized that when you look at this year's performance and when I've watched him, and then when you look at last year's performance, big drop off.
Yeah, he's struggled. He's
big drop off.
Teams learn to focus on him.
Yeah.
So they put bigger guys on him, and he really disappears when you put big guys on him. but he's gonna need to show up because he's extremely dynamic. He can skate and shoot. And so if he gets an open space, he could make Denver pay.
He can, but that was the guy I thought I was going to go earlier on, but I'm going to go with Stan Sternshine. Freshman year, coming out, 10 points, 25 games, really a solid defenseman, or I'm sorry, not defenseman, left winger there. 6'1", 205, that says a lot there as well. Played well in the USHL, and I'm looking for him to slowly fill in that depth role and then take this team to like throw around big body hits.
Yeah, he's their matchup. Like that. Yeah, he's their matchup guy. So they put him on Connor Middlestead in the first round of the Big Ten tournament when they swept Minnesota. That was what locked up their tournament bid. And he locked down Middlestead as much as anybody really can.
Considering what Middlestead is known for.
Exactly. So you're likely to see a matchup, I'm guessing, with Troy Terry, because that's more of the mold that Sturmshine is able to defend, but we'll see on that. The guy I have to watch here is senior defenseman Trevor Hamilton. He was the defenseman of the year in the Big Ten. He's this team's best player. He's their leader. And he's the kind of guy that they're going to need to log a lot of minutes. He's probably going to be matched up against guys like Terry and Borgstrom as much as they can, even though they're the lower seed. And then the other player you have to watch is Peyton Jones. The goaltender has a ton of talent. He's athletic, but he is not consistent. He's prone to bad rebounds and bad decisions. And Denver is a disciplined team that makes good decisions. And so if Peyton Jones plays like he normally does, Penn State's in real trouble. But if Peyton Jones plays like he did in the Big Ten tournament last year or against Notre Dame last weekend or the weekend before, they have a real shot of winning this game.
Yeah, it's going to be a close one. It's going to be a fun one here. But in the end, I have Denver winning.
Yeah, I have Denver winning as well. Denver's the best team in the country.
Yeah, I have Denver advancing to the semifinals as well.
Yep. I have them beating Princeton. I think Denver wins both of these games just about as easily as they won both of their games in Cincinnati last year.
Yeah, great point there. We're going to keep moving on here. We're going to head to the Northeast region. We're going to start off with Cornell, where this team, with Boston University, they had a heated rivalry, and the MSG game they have every year. This is the first time they've lost to BU at the MSG venue this year. Their rivalry goes far back. Cornell had a good year. They came out really out of nowhere, I thought. This year, preseason rankings, they didn't really have them that high, if I'm honest. But also, they've been led by their goalie, I think. You don't have a .940 save percentage, and this is my guy to watch. Matthew Galgaja, I believe that's how you say his name. Apologize.
Galida.
Yep. Yeah. It just happens sometimes with me. He's got a .940 save percentage at 149 goals against. That's pretty impressive. I know we've talked about goalies with numbers before, but that's something you need to really recognize, considering in the BC, he played 40 plus games and also put up a 910 plus in 2 years.
Yep.
So only playing 28 games for Cornell, I think that's something you need to recognize. And he can definitely steal a game for this team.
For sure. He's the best goalie left in the tournament. He's my guy to watch too, because BU's prone to frustration, and as much talent as they have, they can kind of get selfish and try to be a lot of heroes on that team. And so if Galida starts rolling, plays like he has all year, and the defense limits shots, BU's going to be in trouble here, and quite possibly won't score. Cornell is the best defense in the country, an offense that really does just enough. They allow less than 25 shots per game, and right around a goal and a half. They have 10 shutouts on the season, so that's as much on Galida and net as it is on the team's commitment to defense. So they really lock it down in their own zone, which is pretty scary for any opponent.
Yeah, because defense wins games in hockey. It's not like college basketball here where you're going to have an offensive duel, and that can end up either way. So defense definitely wins games here. We're going to get into Boston University, who, in my opinion, really did not have a good year. I know they lost talent, but they still have a lot of talent on this team. It's not like they lost everything. Ottinger had a down year. A lot of people had down years. It's starting to get to me with Dan Quinn, because, you want them to make a run. Yes, they won Hockey East, and they kind of played desperate down the stretch, but they didn't look, the whole body of work did not look that good. And My guy to watch is Jordan Greenway. We saw him at the U20s last year. We saw him in the Olympics this year. He's going to be a nice player for the Minnesota Wild. He's got a big frame. It's just is a lot you can talk about him, but when push comes to shove, he uses his body well and he goes hard to the net.
Yeah, for me, Greenway is so much less a factor in college as he will be in the pros. His body almost gets in the way. He has 52 PIMs for a reason.
Well, that's true. But
so sometimes he just ends up doing too much. He's not built for the college game, which is fine. But this team is deep. They have a ton of talent. People knew that. BU is the preseason number 2 team in the country, and considering they were only trailing Denver, they were effectively everybody's favorite team besides the defending national champions. They just lost a lot of strange games, and they never really put it together as a whole. And yeah, I think that some of that falls on Dave Quinn, but part of their problem is that they have so much talent, they just don't play all that well together. And so it'll come down to whether they decide to do what they did in the Hockey's tournament and unite with the chip on their shoulder, and a lot to play for in order to keep their season going. My guy to watch here is freshman Brady Tkachuk. Highly skilled. He's really come alive recently, points in 6 of his last 8 games. And he's one of those guys that can really elevate this team. As you mentioned, Jake Ottinger, not a great year, but he was a big factor in getting BU past North Dakota in the tournament last year in North Dakota. He's got as much talent as any goalie in the country. He's going to be in the NHL, and there's plenty of those guys on this team. So yeah, BU can be pretty scary in this tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But when it comes to this game, I think the goaltending and Cornell's defense is really going to outshine them. BU's been frustrated a lot, and they do it easy, like you said. So I'm going Cornell here.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I think BU keeps doing what they're doing. It worked really, really well in the last 2 weeks. I think BU wins this game. I'm not sure Cornell can score enough to keep up with BU, and they do not play well from behind. So
that's also very true as well. We're going to move on here. We're going to get into Michigan, who's playing Northeastern in the other side of this bracket here. There's really no history between these two teams. They've only met 6 times, and the last one was in 2011. I believe that's correct.
Yeah, this is not. This is like the Air Force St. Cloud game. This is really a national game between teams that just don't see each other ever.
Yeah, I mean, especially with this Michigan team getting hot down the stretch. I know they didn't do the, they had the tournament, they didn't win the tournament, but still, considering where they started off, the troubles they had to where they are now, they've taken a lot of strides and they've really shown up. My player to watch is Quinn Hughes, eligible for the 2018 draft this year. He's ranked around that 6, 7, 8 spot there. He's 4th in NHL Central Scouting as of now for North American skaters. A lot of talent for this kid. Gifted skater, puck handling is just unbelievable, especially when I've seen him. And when you saw him over with at the World Juniors, I was very impressed as well. 28 points in 34 games for his first year in NCAA hockey. That's very impressive as a freshman.
Yeah, he's a really talented player. This is not Michigan's most talented team.
No, it's not.
It's probably not as talented as last year's team. And that kind of ushered out Red Berenson and brought in former Michigan Tech coach Mel Pearson, who did a great job with this team, getting them back into the tournament as a 2 seed. Good work by the coaching staff there. So while they won 20 games, they didn't beat any tournament team outside the Big Ten, which can kind of cause people to wonder if they're as good as the number 8 seed in the tournament suggests. It's a high-scoring team with a top 10 offense, a bad defense, kind of reminiscent of last year's Penn State team a little bit. And so, yeah, I don't think people are going to pick them a lot here, but with an offense that can do some real damage, they're really capable of winning any game. The question just becomes, does any of their goaltending show up? It hasn't most of the year. It did for some of the second half, good enough to get them into the tournament, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. The other team to watch is Northeastern, who has, they had a really good year last year. They finally won the Bean Pot this year. A lot of talent, but they're going to need to show up. Michigan, it's a big program. It's something that's going to be intimidating. A Big Ten school is always very intimidating. I'm going to go with my player, Adam Gaudette, Kobe Baker finalist, former 5th rounder for Vancouver, and he's really had a great year. I mean, 60 points in 37 games in his third year at Northeastern. He's so dynamic with the puck, and even without the puck, he knows how to get into that open ice and really create a play in soft or open ice, as they say.
Yeah.
So that's my guy to watch. I mean, he's a Hobie Baker finalist.
Sure, Gaudette's gonna win the Hobie Baker. He leads the nation in goals and points. And him and Dylan Sakura have really worked well together. Sakura is a top 5 scorer in the nation as well, and also a Hobie finalist. But the guy I'm looking to watch is freshman goaltender Caden Primo, the son of Keith Primo, the Flyer great, has had a great year. Northeastern has historically, at least in the last 10 years or so, had plenty of offense and some great players on offense, but they've never gotten the goaltending to take them anywhere. And it appears that they might have that. Primo has a sub 2 goals against, a 9.32 save percentage. He's probably been the best goaltender in Hockey East this year in a conference that hasn't had much talent at all, and a whole lot to be excited about. But this Northeastern team is one of its best ever. Like Brian said, they won the Bean Pot for the first time in 30 years. It's a team that runs off their power play. They're 3rd in the nation in power play at 27%. And so when you combine power play with goaltending, that's a combination that often does a lot in postseason hockey.
Yeah, no. Excuse me there. I think Northeastern wins this game. Mm-hmm. I think their talent, and like you said, they're finally having a goaltender. Yep. Is put them ahead, and I really like watching them in the Bean Pot this year. Yeah,
they're good. I think they're going to beat. I think they're going to beat Michigan. I think they beat them pretty handily, and I think they win this region.
I'm with you here.
Regardless who they play, whether it's BU or Cornell, I like Northeastern to get out of.
There's just too much talent on this team, and they're finally getting the goaltending, like we said before. Mm-hmm. So we're going to move on to our last region here, the East region. We're going to start off with the Notre Dame team, where they are the number 1 overall seed. Am I correct there? I believe they are, no? Or is it St. Cloud?
St. Cloud's the number 1.
St. Cloud, so then these guys are definitely the 2. This is their 3rd straight year and the 9th time in their third straight year making the tournament, and the 9th time in 13 years under head coach Jeff Jackson. Top seed in their division here. Regular season conference champs. In overtime, the first year, and it's their first year in the Big Ten. So that's pretty impressive. That says a lot. Only team to do this in this year to also win the division and win the tournament, which is very impressive as well. I'm going to go with my guy, Cale Morris, who's been absolutely lights out for them when he's been playing. 33 games, a 946 save percentage, which is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't see that in pro hockey at all.
Yep.
So when they need a big save, he usually comes up with it. And he's got a good size, too, 6'1", 190. There were big shoes to fill. I believe it was Peterson, right?
Yep,
that
Cal
left.
Peterson.
Cal Peterson that left. So I thought he was a really phenomenal goalie for them.
That was the big question mark for Notre Dame entering the season, was goaltending.
And then now, clearly, it's been resolved with Mr. Morris.
Yeah, along with Cornell's Matt Galida, Cale Morris is one of the best goalies in the country. He's got a real shot at winning the Richter. He's their best player. And he's a big reason why they were number 1 in the country for quite a while. And if not for a rough last month or so, they would have been the number 1 overall seed. But they did lose 4 or 5 in February before winning a pair of 1-goal games to win the Big Ten tournament. This is a team that plays team defense as well as anyone in the country. I watched them play at Notre Dame 2 weeks ago against Penn State, and their ability to take away shot lanes, passing lanes, limiting shots to outside is really impressive. Their penalty kill is one of the best in the country at over 88%. It's an extremely aggressive penalty kill that doesn't really give you time to set up.
You don't really see that a lot these days either.
It works really well. So they just don't give opportunities to score. Their only issue is that sometimes they struggle offensively. They were shut out 3 times in the last 2 months. They averaged less than 3 goals a game in a conference that has mediocre goaltending and a lot of scoring, which kind of lends towards boat races. So with all that said, the player I have to watch here is defenseman Jordan Gross. He's the leader on the defensive side. he also loves to shoot. This guy leads the team in shots on goal. He's going to take a lot of shots. He's on the power play, and he can be pretty dangerous offensively. But he's a stud on defense, and kind of leads that defense in what has been a really successful year for Notre Dame, and anything less than their second straight Frozen Four appearance would be a disappointment.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of high expectations for this Notre Dame team. They've been fun to watch all year. We're going to get into your team here, the Michigan Tech Huskies, where coming out of nowhere as a 5 seed in their tournament and getting that bid for, I believe it's the third time, 3 straight years now?
Third and 4 years.
Third and 4 years. And this is all before that 33-year drought, which is absurd to see. They won it. They beat Benjamin and Minnesota State on the road. They had to win those series, which was big.
Yeah.
To win on the road is something else, I think, in college hockey.
Yep, five straight road games to make the tournament.
Especially when you're playing with all those fans right on top of you. It's a lot for a young kid. Yep. And this is all under a new coach, brand new coach this year, which is really great to see. So that means everyone's buying in. But the biggest question, I think, is who are they going to start and goal? I know Munson's been playing for them now. But when you look at the numbers, everyone's split. Everyone's had, double-digit games. Kuro's had 16. Munson's had 23. He's been their go-to guy. And then Brendan has had 11. But none of their numbers scream like, oh, my God, we're going to really rely on this one. So I feel like the flexibility, and this is what I have to watch, is like whoever plays in net is going to be a huge factor. And I think all the goalies at least are on a short leash.
Yeah, so I've been covering this team all year for Tech Hockey Guide, and this is a team with plenty of talent, and we've known that all year. And so the frustrating thing has been the goaltending just hasn't been there. Michigan Tech's developed strong goalies in the past. They have goalies playing in the AHL, ECHL from years past. And this year they just haven't had it. So Packy Munson is going to start this weekend. Devin Caro got hurt against Minnesota State in their first game, the game they lost. And so Munson was forced into action and immediately played the best hockey of probably his career. He's a junior. He spent time at Vermont. He transferred to Denver where he didn't play, and so he came here after Tanner Gillette decided to return for this season. Munson has the talent to be a number one at just about any school in the country, but he's been so painfully inconsistent that it just hasn't worked out. But if he keeps playing the way he did both at Minnesota State and especially at rival Northern Michigan in the WCHA championship game where he shut them out, they have a chance to do some damage. The thing that is scary for Notre Dame here is that Notre Dame has struggled with speed. Both the goals they allowed to Penn State 2 weeks ago were the result of speed to the net and not from anything pretty. And that's the way Michigan Tech plays. Michigan Tech consistently gets outshot and capitalizes on the chances that they have. That's what they did to Minnesota State, and that's what they'll have to do to Notre Dame. They're not going to get a lot of shots. They're not going to get probably even 25 shots against Notre Dame. So it's really going to come down to the goaltending and their ability to capitalize. And so the guy I have to watch for Michigan Tech here is Gavin Gould.
That's a good pick there.
Small guy, ton of speed. He's not their best player by any means, but he's the kind of guy that could cause issues for Notre Dame and spread out that pack defense, create passing lanes and shooting lanes, make things happen. This is a team with plenty of talent, up and down. It's pretty deep. And if they can stay out of the penalty box and get the goaltending, they could put a scare into Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think they could. I just don't. Excuse me. I just think Notre Dame's too they're just that much better in my opinion. So I have them winning this game. We're gonna move on to the last game here as we slowly wrap up. This Providence team, 5th straight appearance, but in the past 2 years, ever since they won it all, they've been one and done. They lost in the finals at Hockey East to BU. Tough game for them. Mm-hmm. The biggest factor, I think, with these guys, they've lost to Clarkson twice this year. They're playing Clarkson again. Player to watch, in my opinion, Mr. Eric Foley, who was a Saint, or who now is a St. Louis Blue, originally drafted by the Winnipeg Jets, was in the Paul Stastny trade, but he's had a really good year, 35 points in 36 games. He's kind of platformed off in his time here, but his style of play and him going harder than that, really, like his physical ruggedness style really shows why he was moved and why St. Louis wanted him.
Yeah, he's quite good. The guy I have to watch is Brian Pino. He's he's a senior forward. He's one of the few guys left from the team that won the national title in 2015. He's a leader on this team. Plenty of talent. But Providence doesn't do any one thing super well. They're a top 8 defense. They're not even a top 20 offense. It's a team that kind of relies on, winning by committee, much like they did 3 years ago when they won the national title. But frankly, I'm not sure they're a huge threat to make it deep into this tournament. But they've had a consistent season. They've got plenty of wins. And so this is probably the game that people are least excited about entering this tournament, which of course means it's just going to go to 6 overtimes.
That's usually how it works, right? So we're going to keep going on here. We're going to get into Clarkson as well. Mm-hmm. This is their first appearance since 2008. Casey Jones, first-time head coach. They won their tournament this year as well. It was, anyone who's known it, was that trip goal. It was supposed to be a tripping call, it looked like, and then he had the sweet finish. I don't know who it was. I apologize. I just have the highlight in my head. I think this team, the fact that they've won twice against this Providence club is a big factor. They know the edge. They're going to have the mindset walking in and be like, we got this. I got to watch Kelly Summers, defenseman, 6'1", 196, 7th round pick in 2014 by Ottawa. Really upped his game this year. He finally got out of the minus column into a plus 19, 30 points in 39 games compared to last year's minus 2 with only 17 points. So he's taken on a bigger role. It's his last year, but he's played a lot better, in my opinion. Yeah,
this Clarkson team has really surprised everybody this year.
Considering at the beginning of the year, they were not really supposed to be.
No, they weren't ranked, but they've done it since the beginning of the season. Their first weekend, they hosted Penn State and Michigan and beat them both to start the year, and then they tied and defeated Western Michigan, who was ranked prior to the season. Like you said, they swept Providence. So they've defeated a lot of tournament teams. They beat Cornell this year. And they've the only team they really struggled with that made this tournament is Princeton. Funny enough, they didn't beat Princeton this year. They lost to them twice, including in the ECAC championship game in Lake Placid. It's a team that, next to Cornell, is the best defensive team in the country. They give up, along with Cornell, the only team to give up less than 2 goals a game, and that's mostly because of Jake Kiley and net. Had a really special year.
Yeah, he really did.
One of 3 rock solid ECAC goalies, along with Colgate's Colton Point, one of the guys on Canada's junior tournament team. This is a Clarkson team that is more than capable of surprising people, as they've done all year. But they're going to need to generate some offense, and that has not been terribly easy for them to do at times. They weren't able to generate offense against a Princeton team that isn't especially good defensively in the ECAC championship game, scoring only once in an overtime game. So this is kind of a toss-up. This is one of the more toss-up kind of games. And had Clarkson finished better down the stretch, they wouldn't be a 3 seed. They'd probably be a 2 and maybe even a 1. So they're not especially hot, but as we've said throughout this show, once the tournament starts, everything changes. And I think Clarkson, even though it's their first year here in a long time, has the ability, at least with that defense, to go and win a game or 2.
Yeah, I have Clarkson winning this game. I think Providence is, like they said, 2-0. Providence is 0-2 against this Clarkson team, so I have them moving on. But coming out of this region, I have Notre Dame. I think they're just too good.
Yeah, I got the same thing. I think Clarkson beats Providence. I'm not impressed with Providence. Haven't been all year. They didn't look good against Boston University in the Hockey East tournament. And I don't think they beat Clarkson, but I do agree with you. I think Notre Dame makes it out of this region. But I will say that I also think Michigan Tech would beat Clarkson if they get past Notre Dame. I think the winner of the early game is going to win this region.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. It's just, I can't see Notre Dame losing, if I'm honest. Yep. So my 4 finalists are St. Cloud State, Denver, Northeastern, and Notre Dame. And you have, just to recap as well.
I have Notre Dame, Duluth, Denver, and Northeastern.
So we'll start off with the first game, the earlier game, probably. St. Cloud State versus Denver in my bracket.
Yep, I have Duluth and Denver.
Duluth and Denver in his. Who do you have winning this game?
I have Denver winning that game.
I also have Denver winning this game. I think there's just too much talent on that team not to say anything. And then with the later game, it's going to be Northeastern versus Notre Dame.
Yep.
I have Northeastern.
Yeah, I have Notre Dame winning again. I trust Notre Dame's coaching more, and I trust Notre Dame has the ability to win playoff games. They proved it last year, and in this case, I'm picking the goaltending, and they have a slight goaltending edge.
That's very true as well. I just think Northeastern, they're going to want it more. It's been a while since they've gotten this far, for Pete's sake. So my bracket, I've got Denver versus Northeastern. You have Denver versus
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Who do you have winning it all?
I'm not going to pick against Denver again this year. I did it last year, and that was a source mistake.
We learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Huh?
It will take a lot for me to think that Denver isn't going to win the national tournament again. They'll be the first team to repeat since Denver in 2003, 2004.
Okay, so they follow in their footsteps there. I'm going to also go with Denver. I think they're just too good of a team. Borgstrom's just him, Terry, Gillette, I can keep going on here.
They have more high-level talent than anyone in the country. They have a goaltender that shouldn't be playing college hockey anymore. He's a professional goaltender.
Oh, yeah.
He's at this point borderline ancient, and that's scary for any team that goes up against them.
Yeah, so this has been our Frozen Four breakdown here, bros. Thank you for coming back on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hopefully we'll do this again next year, and hopefully we'll have you on sooner rather than later. Yeah. So check us out at the Hockey 411, or check us out on our website, hockey411.com. We'll be back hopefully later on in the week, and until then, take it easy.
Thanks for listening to the Hockey 411. Follow us on Twitter at the Hockey 411, or check out our website, thehockey411.com. See you next time.